we aren't the same if we don't have longtime college football head coach and assistant coach Phil Bennett, former Texas A&M football player as well, with us on the show. It's been too long, and we hope the news is that throughout the football season, Coach Bennett will join us for Truth Serum on Mondays or whenever day he picks after a college football weekend. Well, how's retirement?
Well, you know, I've been, believe it or not, I've been busy, and so that's good. I find things to do. You know, my brother Jerry has had some health issues, and I've been down there. I don't know if you know this, Smoak, but my daughter and my son-in-law have moved to actually Waco. He's coaching at Waco Midway with Coach Anderson.
I did know that.
So I've been back and forth there. I just had a brand new grandson. He's in Scott and White right now, to getting a little bit more treatment. But so I've been active, and I've enjoyed it.
All right. So in August, when everyone starts to blow their whistles, how much will you get the EBGBs?
You know, I was thinking about when we texted earlier today. It's the dog days of summer, and this is where I used to do all my pre-planning, what I had to do to be creative and to get the depth chart. So it's already started a little bit, you know. But it's different when you're almost 70 years old. I'm not as smart as I thought I was, and I don't have the energy I used to have. So, but I can still talk about it.
Coach, we had Bruce Feldman on last week, and he wrote a column about defensive coordinators who coach on teams that run the air raid, the wide open offense, and you were at the forefront of that. I was kind of surprised he didn't call you, in that you guys were almost kind of like the guys who were working on penicillin before they figured it out, because it had to be, for you, growing up in all these different eras of college football, pretty jarring to have to rethink everything you ever knew about how to coach and have a team ready so quickly to go back out on the field.
You know, Paul, what's funny about that, I started in the wishbone with Emory Ballard. And, you know, boy, that was the defensive coach's dream. You played about 45, 50 plays a game. And then ended my career, basically, at Baylor, where we played, I think during my 6 years there, I think we played 16 possessions a game, which is, you know, sometimes more than twice than other people. But, you know, it was a different philosophy. But once we got it down, and I think we've discussed this before, total yards became non-existent, and points became more important by how many possessions. You know, how many stops you could get. You know, Smoak and I used to talk about, you know, if you can get, when I was at Baylor, if we could get 3 stops in a row in the beginning of the game, very few times did we ever lose.
Coach, how similar is what Sonny Dykes does and what he'll be doing with Kendall Briles compared to what he was doing last year with Garrett Riley? I mean, there's a lot of the familiar faces that we just kind of touched on, and stylistically, how similar is what they're going to try to do compared to what you guys did back then, or even what we saw from them a year ago?
Yeah, you know, I think they'll be somewhat similar. You know, one of the things Kendall was a little bit, he had to be different. And I thought he did a really good job at Arkansas of being creative with the players that he had. I know Art and I talked one time, and Art told him, he said, hey, you know, you can't be, and that's one of the things I always loved about Art. He said, you've got to be able to manage and do the things your players can do. And I thought Kendall really did that at Arkansas with his quarterback. You know, he never had a great running back. Their offensive line wasn't great. So he slowed the game, the quarterback run game. He did some things. I think at TCU, he might have a more explosive group of guys that he will get back to what he wants to do. And that's what, you know, Art and those guys did, spreading the field, tempo, and making the defense try to react to them.
I got to ask you this, Phil, because talking about Kendall and also Lebby's at Oklahoma, and we know, you know, coaches are all throughout America since the breakup of the coaching staff after 2016. When you see everybody back landing on their feet, you, of course, Arizona State, and then at at North Texas, what do you think?
You know, I think there was a lot of unnecessary hard times. You know, Randy Clements and Jeff Levy went to an NAIA school, rode buses for 17 hours just to stay in coaching. And that pisses me off, quite honestly, because they never did anything but represent what they did at Baylor at top notch. You know, Kendall had to go to FAU, and you know, I don't like what transpired and what they had to go through, but I admire where they're at now. I think, you know, Smoak, we always talk about, you know, the cream rises. I think they all have worked their way back through the stigma of the situation to where they're well respected. And obviously, you know, Jeff did an unbelievable job at OU and UCF, everywhere he's been, Ole Miss, and then Clem is at North Carolina. So I admire what they've done and how they've done it. They haven't cried. They just worked their way back up there.
What is Auburn getting in Philip Montgomery?
Oh, it's getting a great football coach. You know, Philip was on the forefront of what we were doing and was just a major role player. When I first got to Baylor and the 4 years that I spent with Philip, he did a wonderful job. You know, he's creative. He has art vision in what he does. And you know, quite honestly, at Tulsa, they could move the ball, but it became such a hard job in other areas that he was still a guy that you know, his quarterback will throw forever. I think he will be a great asset for Auburn.
Phil Bennett, longtime football coach with us on 365 Sports. So, you know, Paul just mentioned Montgomery. All right, so I know that the Big 12 now has the 4 incoming schools. That became official at midnight on Friday. Which of those 4, just based on maybe just looking at them, UCF, who you faced in a bowl game, different team, Cincinnati, who made a run 2 years ago, Houston with Dana, and then Brigham Young, who's basically been a Power 5 conference team for a long, long time. Which of them do you feel like's more suited immediately for the Big 12?
You know, I would have to say, and you mentioned it, will probably BYU, because they've played that type of schedule, being an independent. You know, they've played in the big games. I mean, I can remember, you know, when we were they were playing everybody who was anybody. But at the same time, I think Gus at UCF has got the commitment level. I think with Tillman Fertitta's backing at U of H and their new stadium, they're building a new football ops thing. And I can remember during my early years of playing, I mean, when Houston, you could remember this. When they came in the conference, hell, they won it the first year they were in it. Mm-hmm. So I would never. Now, I think that, and I've thought about this because I've tried to discuss some things, but I think Cincinnati, with a new coaching staff, it's going to be a little bit of a drop off of where they've been with Fickle, because he had done such a good job and got it into that situation. But I think they're all good programs, and I think they'll fit the league good.
What do you think about your alma mater and Jimbo Fisher bringing in Bobby Petrino to run the offense, and some of the changes that they've made to bounce back from an abysmal 5-7 season?
Well, you know, I think this. I thought last year, and we all know this, and I'm not an excuse maker, but you know, I just felt like that there wasn't a chemistry there for whatever reason. You know, they led the country in the late of games. It was obvious that the game has evolved a little bit. I think Jimbo's a good coach, but I think offensively he needed someone. He's got to take care of the overall program, and they had too many things happen last year that just showed that he wasn't able to. He wasn't at that point management. I think Bobby can come in and help him a lot, and give him time to work with other things, even to the point help DJ. Hey, this is what I want on defense. They struggled last year with their 3-3 front, trying to stop the run against Appalachian and against Ole Miss. They got where they couldn't stop. So I think having a guy, and I'm a Bobby Petrino fan. I think I've played against him. I think he's an excellent coach. I think if the chemistry's there, which I saw him in town one time, and I had a short visit with him, and he seems to think that it is. I think that they can be vastly improved. Also, I think the schedule in the SEC is for them is going to be better than it's been in a long time. I've said this for many years. The SEC is a great conference, probably the best, but they're not a true top to bottom conference. If you look last year, Texas Tech, dominated Ole Miss in the bowl game, but the upper level guys, the Georgias, nobody's been able to touch them, and I don't know how many. Can y'all tell me right now who you think the top 4 SEC teams are going to be? Obviously, Alabama's going to break in a new quarterback. Georgia's going to break in a new quarterback. Tennessee is going to have the guy. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I think A&M maybe can get to their first their game against Alabama. They might be undefeated and might have a chance to get hot.
Yeah, I think definitely LSU will be in there as well, but your point's taken there. There are some question marks for sure, and it is very top. I mean, they've not just got the top, they got like the elite of the elite with a couple of those in Georgia and Alabama for sure. And sticking on A&M for a second, just as putting your fan cap on, and I know it's a year away, but what are your thoughts on the renewal of Texas and Texas A&M here in just a year's time?
I'm going to tell you something. I was at a function Saturday night. I coached that win, and we're very close. And they, y'all might have seen it, but they did a documentary on him. Anyway, we were talking, and something was said to me. I never thought about this, but they've not played since 2011, and the younger kids really have never valued the younger fans that game. Having coached in it, played in it, I'm telling you, it has hurt me to the bone that A&M and Texas have not played, because it is one. And I've been in some great rivalries. It is one. To be involved in it as a player and a coach, it's just electrifying. And I am tickled to death that it's going to happen. And I'm still hopeful that it's going to be in Thanksgiving. Every one of us that have grown up in Texas, always look forward to Thanksgiving for that reason. So yep. I'm excited about it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm disappointed it's going to be in the SEC, but that's just the way it is now. That
Thanksgiving, you had Auburn, Alabama, Nebraska, OU, A&M, and Texas. And I know there were other games too, like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, whatever.
But those were the big three.
Were the dogs, right? Those were the alphas in college football. So, speaking of Texas, they're about to move into the SEC. It appears as if Sarkisian has turned the corner. Maybe they have grit, they have a better culture, they have a little edge to them. Do you see that, or is that just fool's gold again?
I'm going to tell you, it's to me, you've got to prove it. I'm not. I think he's a good coach. I think Gary Patterson helped them immensely on defense. I know he did. They got better. They got sounder there. And I think Quinn is a good quarterback. A great one, I don't know. Losing Bijan Robinson, is going to be huge. And then I haven't seen them. I thought last year against Texas, maybe if Ewan hadn't got hurt, against Alabama, they could have won that game and maybe should have won it. But week in and week out, I've also saw them against Texas Tech, and they were, they just weren't good enough to beat Tech at Lubbock, and so the consistency and all the different things coming together. I know you can say they've got better players, but I'm going to have to see it.
Phil Bennett with us, 365 Sports, former Baylor defensive coordinator with us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak.
Do you have a favorite A&M and Texas game that you were coaching in or playing in?
Oh yeah. Coach Roll's last game as a coach in 1976. It was a Thanksgiving night in Austin, and we Earl was banged up a little bit. He still played, but we beat Texas. I think it was 27-6, and it was at that point of the year we had lost a close game. We'd lost two very close games. We ended up 10-2, 11-2, and I thought at the end of the year we were the best team in the country at A&M, best team I'd ever been involved in, the best team I was involved in any fashion at A&M, and we won the game, dominated the game in Austin, and then went on to beat a very good Florida team in the Sun Bowl. Of course, you say, well, Sun Bowl. Back then, hell, there were only 10 and 11 bowls. So if you played in a bowl, you were a top level team. But and then Coach Roll ended up, I think he was 54, 55 years old, retiring after that.
What will you miss the most about coaching?
I'll tell you, I've said this before, just the interaction with the players, the coaches, everybody. I've always, people don't realize how many people it takes to run a program. I told you this one time at Baylor, Smoak. I was good friends with the trainers, the managers, the equipment people. Mike Sims and Mike Sims is one of the best I've ever been around. Everywhere I've been, it takes so many people to do it, and to come together for one cause, I try to prove that you can get this thing to a higher level, at a highest level. That's what I'll miss, and getting the kids to, as the Tom Landry saying, hey, great coaches or good coaches get players to do what they don't know how to do, or sometimes don't want to do, to get where they want to get. And I'll miss that, because I think you have a calling to get kids to play at a higher level and keep them excited. And sometimes, I tell people, they say, well, you act like you're mad. I said, not mad. It's just a sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. And I think this too, nowadays, everybody talks about you can't mistreat. Kids aren't soft. If they're soft, it's because we let them be soft. I still think kids want to win. I think they want to get pushed, and I think they want to be driven. And now, I didn't say disrespected, and I don't want to. You want to be careful of crossing that line. But I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed seeing kids get better, and the camaraderie with the coaches. I tell people this. If you look at my career, I've probably had a career probably as good as anybody. I've been so fortunate. I've never had a bad job. And we were talking. I played golf with R.C. Smoak a month ago. And we're talking. He said, what would you bet? I said, I don't know. I couldn't say that all of them were good. Every place I've been, I couldn't sit there and say I didn't like it there. Never. Now, some jobs really felt very fortunate that the people that I've been around, I've really enjoyed them, and I thought that we were doing the right thing.
You were at Arizona State for a short time, but you were there. So you experienced Pac-12 football. Not that you didn't play against other Pac-12 schools. You guys crushed UCLA in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego one time. You just beat them up. But being a part of that conference, can you try to describe, it's not that football's not important, but is it different? Because you see this consternation about what may happen if they don't come up with a pretty good media deal with their television contract, and who might be interested in looking elsewhere, whether it's Colorado or Arizona. and you don't get that impression about Arizona State. What was that like?
Yeah, when I was there, of course, Washington was, they were dominant. They played in the college playoffs. USC had Darnold. It was unique, but you also see some things. It's a big conference. You're a lot of different states. It's more states than you're going to Oregon, you're going to Utah, you're going to Washington, California, Arizona, Colorado, and I think because of the graphical area that you lose a little bit. It was good football when I was there. Colorado was still okay. Mike McIntyre had kept it going. There was some great venues. Stanford was good. It was before they had dropped off a little bit. Utah was good. We were very fortunate going there and play. I played a couple of times. It's a great atmosphere. I just think, like everything else, I've kept up with that, Smoak, and it's so crucial. I think the league has been totally mismanaged. Having someone making decisions, the leadership of a conference is crucial. Just like the leadership you and I have talked of what you guys are doing at 365 now. I think the vision, the money they spent from, I remember when I was there reading the story of and talking to some of those Pac-12 guys. They built that, paying that rent that they were paying in San Francisco, and they moved in there. And I think there was a lot of confidence lost. And then I think that now you're looking around, they're saying, and USC saw it, and UCLA, and the unthinkable has happened. Their two LA teams are going to the Big Ten, which in our lifetime, who would have ever believed that? That would have been an April Fool's joke.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, things have changed dramatically. My last question, because you only experienced it, it's only been around for a couple of years, Phil. What is more or was more of a distraction, the transfer portal or NIL?
It was a combination. The transfer portal, after my last year, my first year at North Texas, we lost two very good players, and they were definitely D1 players. They went to UCLA, really good players, good kids, and they did well out there. We lost a couple other kids, and then this year, or last year, before trade, we lost a couple of guys just on NIL stuff. So, what I don't like is there's not a common denominator. I read something recently about A&M and made a statement, said, the state of Texas allows us to do this, and the NCAA said they're going to have to abide by this. And basically, you've got a state law and you've got the NCAA. I don't know who do you respond to on that? Mm-hmm. How is that going to work when you're a member of the NCAA by agreeing to go by their rules, but yet on this one, because it benefits you, you're gonna go by state law. I don't know. You tell me. What are you hearing on that? How's that gonna happen? And then you go to Florida, they can't do that, and there becomes a distinct NIL advantage with your on-campus people being able to manage what you're doing, and you can't do it at Ole Miss. You can't do it at Mississippi State. How did they make that fair?
Yeah, Coach, it looks like A&M has kind of indicated that they're going to follow the state law, or that's where they're going, because I get a feeling that a lot of their big politically tied-in people help push for that. Same thing at Texas, as where schools like Baylor, we've had Mac Rhodes tell us they're going to follow the NCAA law. It doesn't benefit them to.
But do you think that's also the case, and you've mentioned this, Phil, Craig's mentioned this as well, because those two aren't worried about the NCAA, even though A&M's been hit before a handful of times. When you're a smaller school or a smaller fish, no matter how good you might be, you just don't want to mess with it?
Yeah, I think that very well could be the answer, but there has to be some guidelines, and I think every coach in America will say the same thing. You know, it's got to be equal. I mean, you know, when you're sitting in there, Baylor, A&M, they're 90 miles apart. I mean, they're going to compete. You know, they're trying for the same thing: get to the playoff, win a national championship. You have to have something. It's got to be a fairness. Now, I understand this. There are the ones that, hey, some have more things than others. I mean, Lord knows, University of Texas, you know, has always been able to outdo the people in the state of Texas. Now A&M has moved up, but I just don't know where the bottom line is going to be with it. Because everybody said, well, the NCAA is done. That's not true. I mean, at this point right now, the NCAA is still in charge of college football. And now, how much longer? I don't know. Is this going to be there? Is this going to be the end of it? That's the question. I don't know that. I mean, you look at what's happening in the playoffs when it goes to 12 teams. You know, a lot of people talk about. A lot of people I know that are very well informed. They think that they're going to take over. There's going to be 68 teams, and it's going to be the bowl subdivision team, whatever it is, and there won't be an NCAA. I don't know if that's about. I don't know. Have you heard that?
Man, we've heard it all.
We've heard it all.
We really have. We've heard it all. We've heard it. Some are just going to send the middle finger and go ahead and see what you can do. And then there's some that are nervous about maybe they've already overstepped their boundaries and worried about taxes and what's the write-off or what can be done here. I know Del Conte sent out a letter saying, okay, hey, we need to kind of, this is what we need to look at. So even the big boys have to still wonder, okay, wait a minute, the NCAA feels like nobody cares about them because they have no power, and that's about the time they want to show their power.
Yeah, I've always wondered, though, Coach, why the NCAA just doesn't take the laws in Florida and Texas, take out a couple of little smaller things they don't like, and make that the rule. That way there's the rules. It's the same for everybody. Now you don't have to worry about anybody's state legislature passing it. Here's the rule. Here's what everybody's agreed to, and then we're going to move on. And based on your actual coffers is how you can work within these rules. Because otherwise the schools are going to, especially the states, are going to be one step ahead of them because there's always going to be, somebody like the guy in Miami who was getting looked at by the NCAA, and he just called up and told the couple politicians, like, hey, I would like this to go away. Can you please pass a law? And they said, absolutely. We'll thank you for a donation next time around. And that's how it changed.
When A&M went into the SEC, I think it's 12 years ago, a very prominent coach who's a friend of mine made a statement. I said, A&M's good enough, Eagles still. And he was adamant. He said there'll never be a Blueblood of the SEC. He said Bluebloods are set. He said they'll be down there with South Carolina, Arkansas, Arkansas, and I'm thinking, what the hell you think you are? And I ran into him recently, and it's true. I mean, the SEC is a blue blood conference. If you're going to say, hey, we're not going to abide by what we think, I mean, you're sitting there and it's Alabama, it's Florida, it's Georgia, it's Auburn, it's Tennessee. Those guys are, and if I just don't know when you sit there and say, hey, we're going to do what we want to do, how much that will carry. And I do know this. I think that one of the great things about that conference is they've always had a commissioner that dealt with everybody, and it's sort of crazy, but it'll be interesting. And I don't blame A&M at all for trying to get ahead of the curve, but it's got to be good for everybody, I would think.
Hey, it's been a while. Can't wait to get locked in for the football season to hear your knowledge and insight from what happens the weekend before and just college football in general. Phil, we love you, man. Thanks for your time and glad to have you back on the show.
Hey, thank you, guys. Look forward to talking to you again. Bye-bye.
Phil Bennett, always a great segment, always just exactly how he feels, not this, well, wait a minute, I need to probably, doesn't care. He's transparent. And